Right, well here we have the new camera from the GitUp company, who made the very first GitUp Git 2, which was a great little camera. This is the G3 Duo. Let's see what we've got here. Catch on the side, that makes a change. Oh, it pushes that way. Right, that pushes that way, and then you can lift it up. Got that? That little clip pushes that way. Got it. Right. Oh, and the gate opens that way. Now, all other cameras I've seen, the gate opens that way. Right, I've turned it on accidentally as well. Nice case, nicely made. And of course it's got one mounting bracket and thumb screw on it already. Right, so here's the camera. And the first thing you're going to notice about it is it's got an extra input here, which is why it's called the Duo. Apart from the USB connection and the HD out, so you can view video on TV, it's got one that's here marked GPS and camera, because this camera has an optional GPS logger. I'll just turn it off. And the other thing is, this camera has an optional slave camera, which enables you to do things like picture in picture and so on. Well, I'll have to explore what you can do with it. So two optional extras there. Two optional extras then, GPS logger and the Duo camera. I've got the whole package here because I'm reviewing it for GitUp, but of course you'd have to order some of these things separately. So let's have a quick look at the camera without looking at the manual. Battery here, tripod screw, microcard slot, USB, GPS camera slot, HD out for TV, and you'll notice this has only got two buttons, unlike the original Git 2, which had a little one there, because this camera is touchscreen. So there you go, even without actually looking at the manual, it's pretty easy to figure what you've got to do with it, because it's always a question of swiping and so on. Right, well, I'll have a look at the manual, put a suitable microcard in, put it on charge, and then we come back and take a closer look at all these goodies. So don't go away, I'll see you in a bit. Well, I've got it on charge. Easy to see, it's charging. It's got a red light on at the front. I'd imagine that goes green or goes off once it's charged. Oh, and lights flashing on the top to show it's charging. Right, well, while I'm at it, one thing I noticed in there was there's a lens cap, and I'm going to put it on now so the lens doesn't get damaged. Right, so let's take a closer look at what you actually get with the G3 Duo from GitUp. You've got the case, of course, solid back, no ventilation, different kind of clasp because it's got a clasp on the side, and the original Git 2 actually had a different kind of case with a clasp on the side. Looks a nice case, one mount already on it. You've got some sticky pads here, one with a slight curve, stick onto a helmet, and then of course this mount just slides in, and to help you do that you've got various standoffs so that you can stick it out this way or that way and with a twist and so on. You've also got here a 1/4 inch tripod mount, so you can mount the camera on anything that's got a suitable male tripod screw. You've got handlebar mount. You've got USB charging cable, it also lets you retrieve the files from the camera. Some stickers, and you've got the user manual. And just for a change, I actually sat in the pub last night and read this because, as you saw in my opening, there are some extras and I wanted to know how to use the extras with this. Right, so let's take a closer look at the camera. Much the same size as the original Git 2, although slightly fatter because, as you can see, the G3 has got the extra socket to plug in a slave cam and the GPS. At nearly 87 grams, it's a bit heavier than the original Git 2, which was just 65, which made it one of the lightest action cameras around with good quality, and made it good for using for FPV, because both of these are FPV capable cameras. But the major difference is the G3 is touchscreen and it's slightly bigger screen, whereas the GitUp Git 2 was just push button operation. On the front here you've got a 170 degree wide angle lens. You've got the mode on off button, you've got a couple of LEDs that flash. On this end, of course, you've got the sockets for USB, HDMI out, and GPS and slave cam, and of course the microcard slot. Now they suggest it will take up to 128 gig. I've just got a 32 gig SanDisk in there, but class 10 needs to be class 10 or better, or high speed even. So that goes in that way. You've got some ventilation holes. On the top you've got the shutter button with another LED, and in the base here you've got the battery slot and a 1/4 inch tripod mount. Right, so a closer look at the camera. As far as the operation goes, touchscreen is very simple. Press the power button for 2 or 3 seconds, you get some beeps and you know it's on. Now you can set it to quick start, in which case as soon as you press on it will start recording. I prefer not to do that, I prefer to have the screen and frame a shot really. So you press shutter, you get a nice beep, you've got some flashing there, you've got some flashing there, you've got some flashing there. Press the button again and you get 3 beeps. Now I like that because if it's on your helmet and you're pressing it, you need to know when you're stopping and starting. A lot of cameras don't do that, but 3 beeps tells you that you've actually stopped it recording. So it's a touchscreen, I said. Give it a tap and now I've got the on-screen information, which is showing that I'm in video mode. I've got 2 hours 5 minutes recording time on that card, full battery, and I'm at 1080/60 in the wide setting. That's one lot of settings menu, that's another settings menu. That little hand shows that I've got the electronic image stabilization on, and that's saying no GPS because it's obviously not plugged in. I'll come to that in a minute. Give it a swipe, right to left, and you're in camera mode. Press taken a still. Give it a swipe right to left, I'm out of camera mode. Now apart from swiping to change from video to camera mode, if you press the power stroke mode button on the front, you can scroll through 3 modes and get playback mode, which isn't very interesting because it's just my table there, but scroll through these, and again nothing very interesting because it's just shots of my floor and whatever. That gives you playback mode. So press again and you'll come out of playback mode. So that's straightforward enough. Give it a swipe downwards and you're into a quick settings menu. As you can see, that's turn Wi-Fi on and off, that's Bluetooth on and off because there's an optional Bluetooth remote. That is no doubt auto screen lock, that is power off, and that is EIS, in other words gyro stabilization, off. And that one, I don't know what it does. I'll have to have a look in the book. One thing I do like about this, the swipe on this particular camera, is sometimes you forget which way to swipe. Now it's got a little white mark there, so that means swipe it upwards. Press that settings menu and you're into a setup menu here. Quick record, which I mentioned, GPS on or off, changes units when you're using the GPS logger. Rotate the camera if you want to use it as a dash cam, external power, LED, and you've got 4 little dots there, so that's telling me that I can swipe it and get even more. Auto off, on screen display, beep, lock. I'm not going to actually show you what each of these does because this video would end up an hour long. Set the time, language, date format, and of course you can turn it off. Time zone you're in, set the time zone you're in, that's probably for the GPS as much as anything. Reset, format the card, date format, and firmware version. And again you've got that little thing there, so you swipe down and you're out of it. Now press this side, you've got yet another menu. HD res for your video. Now one thing about this is some of the touchscreen cameras, if you wanted, shall we say, 1080 30 frames a second, you touch it, and I was pressing this thinking this isn't working. In fact what you do with this is scroll the page up and down. So if I want 1080 30, I scroll it up to that and then I press return and I'm in 1080 30. I'll leave it in 1080 60. Loop recording, that's for dash cam. Time lapse, which takes a time lapse basically. Interval shooting, will, while you're taking video, take still images at the same time, and as you can see, one every 10, one every 30 seconds or whatever. But I'll leave that off as well for the minute. Off. Wide dynamic range. Zoom is, I imagine, a digital zoom. White balance, gyro on and off, sharpness, which you can change to high, fine, low light. Incidentally, when I do my low light test, I just leave everything as standard, because as with most cameras I test, especially some of the higher end ones like this, there are no end of settings you could use, and you'd end up again making a test that was now long. Metering, average, center or spot, or car DVR. Maybe that's for low light, I don't know, but I tend to use average. Mic on and off, motion detect, G sensor, stamp, that's probably date stamp, I'm going to turn that off, and GPS stamp. Once you've got the GPS plugged in and it's acquired satellites, it will actually put on and mix with your video a little GPS stamp in the corner, which will either show speed or coordinates or all info, and I shall show you some samples of that. So I'll put all info on it. It's very precise when you touch the buttons on this. So again, swipe it down and I'm out of that menu. Now likewise in camera mode, swipe right to left, I'm in camera mode. Touch settings there, you've got image size, mode, which is burst shooting, shutter speed you can change from auto to actually set it up to a 2000th, interval shooting, self timer, zoom. One thing you have to be very careful of with touchscreens is you can change a setting without intending to do so. Shoots in RAW, GPS stamp, you can tell it what you want on screen, contrast, date stamp on or off, and so on. Date stamp on or off, off, oh, off. And swipe down back into camera mode. That's telling me I'm in 12 megapixel and the format is 4:3. Swipe again back into video mode. Right, well I mentioned the slave cam. One thing I'm pleased about is it's got a really nice long lead on it. I mentioned it comes with this kind of mount that you could stick onto a helmet. It's a bit of a shame they didn't include the male version of this, because as I mentioned, it's got a 1/4 inch female tripod mount in the base, and it would be handy to be able to stick this on a handlebar mount or another mount. But anyway, you can get these, you can buy these with a male fitting on for a tripod screw. So simple enough, just plug it in, but plug it into the right slot, because they are both USBs, but obviously it's not going to work if you plug it into the wrong USB slot. So that is now functioning. I'll point it towards the window, and as you can see, we've now got another little picture in screen, and as it says at the bottom there, it's now at 1080 plus 1080, and you're actually recording two separate streams, one from this camera and one from this camera. Press stop, 3 beeps, great, I like it. Now you've got 4 different options for picture in picture, PIP as they call it. If you swipe the screen, you can either have just the action cam, swipe the screen again, you can have just the slave cam, swipe the screen again, you can have the slave as the main cam and the action camera as the picture in picture, swipe it again and you've got the slave cam as the picture in picture, swipe it again, you're back to the start where you've got the action cam as the main camera and no slave working. So that's straightforward enough. Swipe, 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 swipe through the options. And bear in mind that both the slave and the GPS logger are optional. So I'll plug in the GPS logger. Let's see what that does. Same slot marked GPS and cam. And I know from other tests that in fact the GPS will work when I'm sat in my window here. Right, so I plugged the GPS in. You can see the GPS symbol is on, and I don't think you can quite see it because it's in a light green. It's actually saying 0 miles an hour. Even though I've said display both, it doesn't actually show the latitude and longitude on the screen. Once you download the video, you'll see that it is on there. Oh, now I'm tapping that and I've got this other little image up there telling me to swipe it if I want a different setup. So just the same thing, press the button. I'll stick a little sample clip after that so you can see what it shows on the screen. And you'll see that it's got speed in one corner, which of course is 0 at the moment. And it'll show the latitude and longitude on the other. I think the next thing to do is go and take some of this kit out, try the slave cam, and just see what I can do as far as test video goes. I'll do some test video with the camera itself, and then I will test it with the optional slave cam, and I'll see what I can do with the GPS logger. Right, my regular old test shots, 1080-60 with the gyro on and default settings, apart from I've got metering it on average as opposed to centre. But there is some nice detail here, and then off into the distance, down to the harbour, and on the brickwork here and the shop signs. I'll probably do a bit of a zoom in to see how clear the lettering is on the signs. Right, here's one of my other regular test shots, 1080-60, gyro on. But there's some good detail here on the cottages. If you look at the window frames. And round and into the sun, because we're getting into winter now. The rigging on the yachts is also good to see what the definition's like. And the windows on the harbour office over there. And a different view of the harbour here. Some weird noise in the background because somebody is using an angle grinder on working on a fishing boat over there. But at least we haven't got the wind noise today. Into the sun. Right, and here's the low light test, the dark arcade, and it's very dark in here. All you've got is the light from the machines and a few dim interior lights. Swing it around a bit to see how much blur you get with motion with low light, but it is pretty dark in here. Right, well, this is the Git G3 Duo with 2 cameras, and I'm using the external mic to try and see what it's like for a bit of vlogging. This is with the visor open. Only thing is, with all these cables, it's very hard to keep cameras pointing the right way, but we'll see what happens. Probably stop and test it in a minute and see which way the camera on my helmet's pointing. Right, and this is with the visor closed, which probably sounds better because there'll be less motorcycle noise. So a lot of people are interested in vlogging on motorcycles. You can use the external mic of the Git 2 with the G3 or the Git 2. For the moment, the camera down there is the slave camera. It's pointing vaguely where I want it to. They just keep turning around. It's very tricky. And as far as I can see, the camera on my helmet's pointing the right way. I don't know if you can see it there. And the light's flashing, so I know it's recording. The light's flashing on the slave as well. But it's cold and my visor's steaming up, so I'm going to have to open it a bit. Right, that's opening the visor a little crack because otherwise it's steaming up. Doorway there, I don't know if you can see it in my helmet. Not quite sure which way the camera's pointing. But I'm going to go up through the woods towards Berry Head because it might be a bit more interesting for the cameras than just driving around on the road here. Okay, so up through the woods to Berry Head, or towards Berry Head. Can't actually going to go out to the headland. Just going to see what these kind of different views give you. Let it get ahead because I don't want the car in front of me. Just, oh, now some sunshine. Okay, bit of sunshine here. Slave is still pointing the right way. Now, incidentally, on the camera you can have picture-in-picture, but I think when you actually open it, it's 2 files. Thank you for your signal, madam. When you open it, it's 2 files, so you need to actually put picture-in-picture in your editing software. As far as I know, anyway, that's as much as I know. I've asked Git to if you can export in a picture-in-picture format, but I don't think you can. Right, I'm going to pull over into the car park and turn the slave round so it's pointing backwards. Sun's out, so it's brought the tourists out. Not as busy as in summer, that's for sure. I might click on the phone just inside my helmet here. That's going to be right. Right, and up through the woods again, but with a different aspect. As I mentioned, you get picture-in-picture on the camera screen, but as far as I know, to actually create picture-in-picture, you'll need to do it in your edit software. And I use Sony Vegas Pro, which enables me really to put multiple images in. I don't know if GitUp, the company, plan to produce anything that will make picture-in-picture easier. I'm taking it nice and slow up here because you often meet vehicles coming the other way. And again, I'm using the optional external mic, so we can see how well it works for vlogging, which is voice logging on a motorcycle, I think. But look at this lovely sunshine for November. Just a shame it's a bit cold. Take it slow here because there's gravel in the middle of the road. Tell you what, we go a bit further with this ride, if the light's still flashing. And there's a family out there enjoying their bicycles. And they've got helmets on, good for them. Right, the entrance to the fort. Thanks.